Alright, let's continue with our piece here, okay? Now, we're getting there. Alright, let's kind of just get our situation here. Alright, now we're going to have to, of course, bring these back legs down, as we say. But let's go ahead and just, there we go, bring our legs down, and we're going to go in between our legs here, and we're going to remove some of that wood in there. Because actually the legs they come up like this, in other words, sort of in that sense, if you can see that. So we're going to come up and start removing some wood like that on these legs. See that? And with the other side we're going to do the same thing. Okay, see that? We're just removing that wood in there. Be careful with your knife. Don't try to dig, folks. Cut. A lot of people try to take the blade and they try to dig. Don't try to dig with it. Cut it. Make little small cuts. See, a lot of people try desperately to make these large cuts. Now you see, I made that cut in 3 times. That's how many times I cut it before I cut it 3 times before I actually cut it. And up underneath here is kind of difficult to get in, but just remove a little bit of wood at a time. Don't remove a lot. Where people get in trouble, as I've said, is they try desperately to remove way too much wood at one time. And when you do, that wood's going to give. See, just like that. And of course, I've got to come in here and make these smaller. As you can see here. Now these legs are going to have to be a lot smaller. They're not real big. So I have to remove. This is kind of a boring part, watching somebody remove all this, but we have to. This is part of it. This is part of whittling. Okay, now in here, I'm just going to kind of draw a little tail in there. That's what I did, and I'm just going to remove a little wood from the outside of it just to kind of give it a okay, right in there, just to give it kind of an indentation. Okay. Remove a little wood in there. And always when having to remove the wood between the legs, always is kind of a problem, no matter what. But you just take your time. Don't get in a hurry. That's how people get cut. That's how people break their pieces. That's how they try to force something, and you cannot force it. If your knife is not sharp enough, go try to sharpen it a little bit more. Do things like that. But do not in any way try to force something, because it does not work. Years ago, I had old grandfathers and grandfathers and stuff like that. They worked as Boilermakers, and they said, they used to ask, said, well, this thing won't fit, and they said, just get a bigger hammer. I'm sure a lot of you remember those things. And sometimes it worked, and most time it did work. But in carving, you'll break, you know. What they were working with is a lot of iron and steel that wouldn't break too easily. But in carving, it will. So just like in here, I'm slowly removing the areas in here that I need to. See? Up underneath here. Let me go ahead and remove a little bit on the outside too. Not a whole lot. Just a little bit. I know that I said this is kind of the boring part of it. There's not a whole lot of Alright, see that? Now the feet still are way a little bit too thick, so I've got to come down with them some more. There we go. Now we're getting into that area that I want it to be. All right, we're getting okay. Alright, these front legs are going to have to be thinned up just a little bit more. And of course, between the head and the legs here, it's always a little bit harder to get into those areas. You can do it with a gouge or with a, but I'm trying to do it with a knife so that I can show you. I know a lot of you don't have that much experience yet with gouges and things like that. And you can do it with a knife. In other words, years ago, the old whittlers and carvers, they did it with a knife. See? We're getting there. And the same thing here. Look at that. It's really starting to look now the way we want it. What I do with my V-tool? There it is. Just kind of get in between those legs a little bit. Really need my gouge, what I need, not V-tool. As you can see, this leg is much thinner than this leg, so some's going to have to be taken off there. Come back. Okay, this video is almost over. Almost don't have much more time on it. All right. Look at that. It's really starting to look like a little bear. Okay.